Hello, welcome back to theCUBE here in New York City. I'm John Furrier, host of theCUBE. We are in the Meatpacking District in Manhattan as part of Life Calling's kickoff of Notes to Humanity. It's an exhibition that's happening through February 27th. I'm here with John Mack, who's the founder of Life Calling and also driving the Notes to Humanity project. John, great to see you. Thanks for coming on theCUBE. We are in your display area of one of the sets. Thanks for allowing us to come in.
Absolutely, thanks for having me. Yeah, really a pleasure to be here with you.
So you guys had a big event kickoff last night. All the kind of the people from your organization and within the community were here, and you explained your vision and your motivation around Life Calling, specifically Notes to Humanity. And without going into the long story, I'll do a post on LinkedIn on it. But there was one point that I'd like you to talk about because I think this sets the table. You talked about climate change, how people talk about that, but there was a whole nother change that was just as important that motivated you to here. Talk about that connection piece and why Life Calling was formed and what you guys are doing, because I think that really kind of took me by surprise in the sense that I never thought about it that way, but it was like right spot on.
Yeah.
Talk about the motivation,
Sure.
Specifically, climate change is a threat, but there's also the human side.
That's right. So just a little bit of background. I'm a visual artist by trade. So I use imagery to describe things. It sort of takes care of things in a second. So using climate change as an analogy for what I'm seeing today within the human-machine landscape really goes a long way. So let me just brush up on that and sort of share. So Life Calling really came about, this nonprofit which is dedicated to preserving our humanity in the digital age, came about from a Pokemon Go stampede that I saw in 2016. I was reading a Yahoo News article and I didn't know what Pokemon Go was at the time, it had just come out. And I went to YouTube where I saw a video of a Pokemon Go stampede, and what I saw in Taipei were thousands of people flooding an intersection, putting their immediate reality on hold to chase a figment of their mobile device's imagination. This was intelligent life chasing nothing. And as sort of slapstick comedy as that was, I had this grave concern because what I was witnessing was this sort of mass migration of humanity, leaving the world of nature to the world of virtuality, leaving the world of truth to the world of manipulation. And we were sort of becoming avatars of our original natural selves. And so really, if I can describe it in that analogous way, is that I was actually witnessing, and I think what we're witnessing on this planet right now is an inner climate change. So back in the days before Al Gore hit the stage to bring awareness to climate change, he said, he brought awareness to the global stage and he said, look, we're going to reach a point where there's a threshold, there's a tipping point that when crossed, we'll never be able to go back to what it means to be, that natural essence of the planet. The same thing is happening with our inner climate. The human right now is approaching a threshold that when crossed, we will never again be able to go back to the essence of what it means to be human. And not to get too woo-woo on anybody, what we're really dealing with is a metaphysical migration and the expropriation of the human soul.
Yeah, and your whole mission around preserving humanity in a digital age, it's kind of the bumper sticker, but it's self-explanatory, is kind of what we're going through. And we are in a world of AI, we're in a world of transformation, but we're also in a generational shift. As younger people come in, they're digital natives. And
right.
You have an older population. We just had Lily Jo on from Life Story. They're targeting a little bit more older citizens to bring back connections and addressing loneliness. But if I'm chasing imaginations on Pokemon Go and a stampede, I mean, is that lonely? I guess I'm doing something, but what am I chasing? Again, what is self in digital?
Yeah.
Can digital augment us? Or we augmenting digital? And I think this is where I think you're at a point where you're on a threshold or cross-section of us. And digital either takes us over or we take it over.
That's right. Well, so there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, share your thoughts, because your vision is really nice on that one.
I would say firstly, the question might not be so much, what are we running toward when we're chasing Pokemon, virtual creatures, but rather, what are we running away from? That's number one. Are we running away from boredom? Are we running away from loneliness, depression, meaninglessness, pointlessness? Are we depending on virtual realities to fill those inner vacancies before we understand how to fill those inner vacancies on our own, right? So that's number one. So what we're actually doing is we're sort of calling the digital world our savior, because we're saying, please fill this vacancy for me. So that's number one. And then I think as far as this whole augmenting humanity and all of this stuff, one thing I like being very clear on, tech has this, it's not a virtual world, but it's called augmented reality, right? And Pokemon Go is an augmented reality game, okay? Just to be clear, we cannot augment reality. Reality is. It is complete in and of itself. To claim that something can augment reality is to give it the God position. And that is exactly the trap that we're being lured into. We're giving digital tech the God position. And if we don't reclaim our own human agency, we're going to stay on this track that we're on right now, which is this. We are allowing tech to use us rather than us use tech. Yeah.
I love that. I love the thought exercise around the relationships and then the reality of digital and the reality of our lives. You know, one of the things you also mentioned on your talk yesterday, you gave a personal experience of living on the playground and remembering your youth. Yeah. And I had colored, we had black and white TVs when I was growing up. I remember, all you had was the playground. We were, I'm an X generation.
You don't dream in black and white.
We were last feral generation.
Yeah.
We didn't have like, hey, meet us up and stuff. We had to meet in one spot as a group. If you weren't on time, you were out. You had to go find the group. It was like a whole nother world.
That's right.
But what that made me think about, and I want to ask you, because you mentioned the digital augmentation thing is a great conversation. Our experiences define us, right? And so what we do is our experiences of life, who we're with, who we're connected to. So there's a real theme of connection. In your exhibit here, you got a connection to nature, a connection to self-reflection, and a connection to others. So you have a confluence of groups, individual, but the environment. So experiences drive us. If digital is the experience, that is what you're going to have. So what is your vision on that? Because there's, I mean, I won't say technical debt, I guess it's human debt involved, if you want to use that analogy, and we use in the tech world, like technical debt means you'll fix it later. Is there a point of no return where, hey, if you're going to be getting fed an experience that's either ephemeral and not durable or not meaningful, that's not, some of these tech companies don't wake up and when they start the company say, hey, I want to feed people digital experiences. It just happens.
Right.
And so this is why I think that the world's kind of looking at the role of how do we create more truth, more humanity in the tools we use. Just like when cars came about, hey, you drive from point A to point B.
Absolutely.
But the cars were experience.
So experiences do shape us, but if you really break that down, there's a material that exists to be shaped. You can't shape anything that doesn't exist. So before being shaped, there's a material that can be shaped. What is that? This is the question. What is that material before it's shaped? What is that? And that's why I spoke in my personal account of the playground in childhood. What is that material before experience, knowledge, education, value systems have been imposed upon us, right? And that's what we're trying to get to. And then the risk is, and you speak about like the shaping of clay, for example. The risk is that we become shaped and then digital tech solidifies that shape. It almost takes the clay and turns it into a ceramic. And that's really the tipping point that we're on right now. For the first time, as far as I know in recorded human history, we are reaching a point where if we're not careful, tech will solidify the prisons of the human mind. And we're already seeing that, how social media is changing our value systems and our identities. And then we behave in different ways. I mean, we're sort of already avatars of our former selves.
Yeah, and it also takes away from that tribal nature of how groups work. People interacting with each other, the propensity to interact and, just be there. There's no real, I mean, we're in a disruptive phase where the normal laws of whether it's our brains and life is being impacted by these new patterns.
Absolutely.
And they could be permanent.
Absolutely.
I want to ask you about, okay, now let's get, first of all, I love the, I can go for an hour just talking about some of my, is the universe have holes in the fabric and we can reshape things, we can actually have impact. But let's talk about life calling and where you guys are now, and Notes to Humanity specifically. This is the exhibition here. Talk about life calling. What's the purpose of that organization? It's a nonprofit.
That's right.
You're running it, you have a team. Notes to Humanity is part of Life Calling. Can you explain Life Calling and Notes to Humanity?
Sure, thank you. So Life Calling is the nonprofit organization that does a lot of different curated experiences and activations. Notes to Humanity is an activation under Life Calling. And so I like to speak about things in this way. So the human sort of has this relationship with tech right now, which is fairly parasitic. I'm not saying tech is parasitic at all. I just want to be very clear. I want to be very clear.
It's enabling, but it's only a function of what the payload is enabling.
That's right. I just want to be very clear. Like I am very, very pro-tech. I've got the Apple Vision goggles. I love it, but I'm pro-human first, right? And so what I'm seeing is that we've got these sort of inner vacancies that we're allowing tech to feed off. Right, and so, and we're seeing it now with character AI, where people are having relationships with robots and programs, right, and actually taking their life because of these relationships, which happened not too long ago in a case, right? So, the question really isn't what I'm seeing in the field is a lot of the nonprofits out there are focused on tech for good, changing policy, changing the business model, protecting kids to online harms. And although that is all extremely necessary, I mean, I sit on the board of an organization called Fair Play, which works to prevent online harm to kids. Those efforts are extremely necessary, but if you look at this parasite sort of analogy, all of those efforts are repellents. They're trying to keep the parasite away from us. The problem with a repellent is that it's always reactionary. And with the speed of tech, that repellent is going to show up later and later to the game. So what Life Calling is really interested in is what becomes of a parasite if it no longer has a host to feed on? A parasite can't live if there's no host. And what is that host? And that host is what Life Calling says. It's sort of it's a human disposition that we're living in states of loneliness, depression, meaninglessness, and we haven't quite figured out that human agency, that proper self-love to fill those voids. And so that's where Life Calling comes in as an organization. Now, Notes to Humanity under that really began as an awareness campaign to sort of carve out space for people to answer a very simple but vital question. And they receive these beautiful notes, these beautiful cards, they're blank, and a pen, and on the top it says, what does it mean to preserve your humanity in the digital age? And we've gotten some beautiful responses, really heartwarming, touching responses. But what was once supposed to be just an awareness campaign turned into something else, a data research project. Because as I began reading these cards, I noticed fairly quickly that although a lot of the responses were different sort of on the surface, there was a very transpersonal thing that everybody seemed to be yearning for. And speaking about us using tech rather than tech using us, I uploaded pictures of these cards to ChatGPT. And I said, GPT, tell me, out of these cards, is there anything there? Is there like a thread that everyone's sort of speaking to? And interestingly enough, everybody is speaking to the importance of connecting to self, connecting to others, connecting to nature and the tactile world, and connecting to imagination, those four things. So what we're seeing is Life Calling is sort of, it's sending out a call, people are responding, and the human heart really has the answer to where we need to go and what we need to be.
So I like how it's turned into a data project, and when we first met, I was all over this because I love data, and because it's interesting, your thesis around Life Calling, is grounded in some hard realities, okay, but still optimistic. And the pro-human first is actually a great narrative. People should adopt that. But I think, when I've asked people on theCUBE, how do you look at preserving humanity in digital age? I don't think I get it as smooth as you in delivering the question, but the responses are like robust, people light up, and they're different.
They're different,
And they're different, but they're kind of the same. One, they lean in. It's not just a normal question about tech and life. People actually don't lag on responding to the question.
And what's even more interesting,
and they actually are leaning in. They have it it's on their brain is in RAM, as I say. It's right on the tip of their tongue, and they're ready to share it. You're right. Thanks for asking. Someone finally asked.
Well, that's another thing that's so interesting is this question, what does it mean to preserve your humanity in the digital age? In the 300 cards that we've gotten so far, not one person has asked, what do you mean by that question? That's extremely revealing. Yeah. People understand somewhere innately that there's something about our human predicament.
And what that tells me, there's more demand for this now than ever before, because again, the responses that I'm seeing, instant response, it's top of mind. And I think the idea of a data project, I mean, I never would have thought of it this way, but like how you kind of by accident on purpose got there, is that if everyone just fed their opinion into a prompt or camera or write down for more reflective notes, it'd be interesting to see actually if the humans showed up to vote right now.
Absolutely.
If the entire world, I mean, hypothetical, just weighed in with their perspective, what would the data science show us?
Yeah.
We had Lily on, she's a former data scientist, now working on an entrepreneurial venture to solve loneliness. But there are enough tech people out there to do this. So that's an interesting question. So I think the world is going to unify around this. I want to get your reaction to that, because how do you pull that off? You can build an app, hopefully get it out there, but you can also do the notes. How do you ingest all that data? And then two, how do you organize people that are already doing it? And you recognize, and you said publicly, I heard this, that in these impact organizations, there are a lot of people working on the same thing.
That's right.
The left hand, someone doesn't know what the right hand's doing, and someone's in Germany working on something, someone in the US is working on something, and sometimes they don't talk.
That's right, very siloed, very siloed. So life calling is really becoming the thread that weaves all those organizations together. And I'll just go back to like before the Al Gore years. So Al Gore hits the stage, whether you agree with climate change or not, it's not about that, hits the stage to raise global awareness. Now, before he hit the stage, there were plenty of organizations scattered around the planet that were already reforesting and taking care of the environment. But they didn't have the funding to scale. It's not because they weren't doing anything wrong. It's just that global awareness wasn't brought to a point that said, these organizations are absolutely essential. Life Calling, Inner Climate Change, we're doing the same thing. There are organizations scattered across the globe that are already working to foster connection to self, to others, to nature, and to imagination. They don't have the funding to scale. And it's not because they're doing anything wrong. It's because global awareness hasn't reached a point to say this is absolutely critical. So Life Calling is really, we're going to take the responses of Notes to Humanity. We're going to then go out and find organizations that are meeting the yearning of the people, platform them, and try and get funding into those organizations.
So you're thinking about a unification layer platform, not necessarily technical, but like mostly business transformation too. Like, hey, let's sync up. Do they do that? I mean, is it siloed because they're just on a different funding thing? Is it just cultural? Is it just more of no one's ever thought about like kind of threading the groups together?
Look, I think we've built systems, quite quickly, and I think there's this, part of the paradigm that really needs to change is this survival mode thought form. Right, and I think organizations, although their hearts are right, their intentions are good, it's survival mode for all of them. And when you're in survival mode, there's scarcity. No matter how many people want to say we need to acknowledge that there's abundance in funding. There is, but the mindset isn't there right now. And that's one of those things that needs to shift in order for real change to happen.
Well, I'm learning a lot about how philanthropy works. Obviously, I don't have any experience in nonprofit, but on a personal level, I have experience in open source software, because when I was in college, software was proprietary, and there was no such thing as open source. I'm old enough to know that software wasn't free at one point, but the whole premise was building on the shoulders of others. Absolutely. And so I think what you're getting at here is very important with your work, because you're basically saying, hey, if you got work already leveraged, let's leverage it together. Let's share, share the work and share the opinion. Let's organize. And I think that is a really productive, efficient way to kind of move faster.
You asked if I'm trying to unify, and from top to bottom, this Life Calling is all about unification.
Awesome. Well, let's get into the Notes of Humanity. We are here in the Meatpacking District. You have a great display, great community developing. Walk us through, for the folks watching, what is going on here. Behind us is the nature zone, I'm calling it. You can just describe when they walk in, what's the overview of the space here?
Absolutely. So what we try to do is divide this beautiful space in the Meatpacking District into 4 different sections. One being a section that is about connection to nature. This is one of Life Calling's 4 lines of connection, and we are actually in that nature room right now. Real trees, moss, some fake stones, that's all right. And here people really connect to nature, and we're bringing people off the street of this grid-like system of New York and the fast-paced life of this world, and trying to have them drop into a space, carve out a space where they can get very, very quiet. And then they move into this next room, which is the connection to self, the next line of connection for life calling, where they sit down at beautiful library desks in quiet, and they write their note to humanity on this card. And it's a wonderful introspective experience. From there, they move on to the section which is connection to others. And here there's sort of a confession booth that they can walk into and read their card to a camera. And there are places where you can sit with a stranger and you each read your note to humanity to each other. So it's really a moment of vulnerability with people who you've never met before, sort of bringing that together. And then from there, you deposit your note to humanity into an archive box where the information will get scanned and archived and contribute to our data research project. And then from there, you move into this room, which is connection to imagination, the last of the 4 lines of connection, where really you walk out into the streets of New York City from there, imagining a new world where the mind becomes a tool of the heart. That's what we're going for here, rather than the other way around.
Great overview of the display. Definitely want to promote that piece, folks watching. We want to get that up on the internet pretty quickly. I noticed the Notes to Humanity is a real thought out, intentional document.
Yeah.
And it requires attention and time. There's desks there. That's by design. It's designed, you're not trying to get the most cards.
No.
Because that would be designed as an app, or like I said,
That's
I don't
right.
think, which is why my idea is bad. But this is important because you want people to reflect without distraction.
That's right.
Take us through the note, because it's well thought. It's pretty simple to understand. I mean, you just walk through, but you have to sit down.
You have to sit, well, so it's interesting. We had this event last night and people took their notes and they went to sit down and they thought it was actually going to be a very easy exercise, and they sat there with this blank note card and this pen with this question about their humanity, and they said, I'm going to need more time to think about this. I mean, it's a very, very deep question. This is not about quantity. This is about quality. And this is also part of the paradigm that needs to shift. Life calling, people ask us, well, is this a nonprofit or is this impact? And no, this is not return on investment. This is ROH. This is return on humanity. And so more important for us is a quality, deep, introspective response to these cards rather than the quantity. It's the quantity that's... Life calling is here because we've lived in a purely quantitative world, and we're trying to counteract that.
Actually, John, it's great to have riff in real time on this interview, because you mentioned earlier, and I said people will have a response off the top of their tongue when asked on camera.
Right.
But when asked to sit down, I had the same exact reaction. That's data.
Yeah.
So that tells you even more that now I'm going to have to use my hand, my brain, have to write something down. When was the last time I actually wrote a letter to someone?
That's right.
I mean, that's the question. When did someone actually write a handwritten note? Thank you.
You can tell by looking at people's handwriting, it's been a long time.
I'm printing like I'm in 4th grade. It's like I don't want to go back to...
A lot of us
I don't want to go back to 4th grade.
But that's something that's very beautiful, because when people make a mistake, they cross it out. It's very human. We're not going for slick perfection here.
I really like the intentionality there. Okay, final question for you. What's your goals with life calling in terms of keeping the organization going, your involvement? Obviously, you're driving it. You have a team. You have the Notes to Humanity, which has got momentum. Yeah. And I love the research project. I think you're on something big there that has a lot of legs. What's your goals this year? Take us through what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, the goal here right now, at this point, it's sort of it's a phased approach. But in this phase, we'd really like Notes to Humanity to become a part of a lot of different organizations and corporations out there. So I would say to the community, if you want Notes to Humanity to come to your business, please let us know. If you go to the website, Life Calling, it's life-calling.com. Actually, on that website, we also have a digital Note to Humanity that you can fill out there. Just make sure you find the quiet time and introspective time to do that. And submit that to our archive. So that's the first step. And then, of course, we're always in fundraising phase, and it's going to take money to scale this. But I want to be clear. I've been funding Life Calling on my own, and it is really my goal to have a multiplier effect, where if I put $1 million into Life Calling, I want $10 million to go to these other organizations.
Yeah.
So
that's the unification piece.
That's the unification.
You're putting your money up and saying, hey, I'm going to put some skin in the game.
That's exactly right.
And I want to bring people along on the journey.
Yeah, and it's not my doing. It's the community is saying this is what's needed. So if that is what's needed, are we going to put our money where our mouth is? That's really it. And just, yeah, go ahead.
On the corporation side, two questions. I want to get to the partners in the ecosystem, but for the corporations, they could adopt. That was a good ask there. Why should they? Because someone might say, why do it? What's the reason?
Well, I would just say, look at the state of the world. I mean, I think that's reason enough.
It also is a team building exercise for their team.
Oh, it's absolutely a team building exercise. Absolutely. I mean, for corporate culture, absolutely. This is, one thing that was, we did a soft launch of Notes to Humanity at Necker Island with Richard Branson and a bunch of people, AI people from Silicon Valley. Wonderful group. And I knew the responses were going to be beautiful, but actually what was most beautiful was when people came to us and said, thank you so much for carving out that space and having me reflect on that. So the real beauty was in the act of doing it. So I would say, there are benefits all around to bring it into the workplace. Absolutely.
Final question for the people out there doing work in and around the area that you're in. I think there's a nexus happening for sure. What's the message to the folks out there that are doing work around the same area? Why should they join you? What could they do? How do you put the package together? Do you pool the money? Kick us through the mechanism of how you pull the unification together.
Absolutely. So what Life Calling, sort of at the end phase of Notes to Humanity, we're building a portfolio of what we call H organizations. So human organizations, human first organizations. That fund will most likely be called H+1, Humanity First. And yes, it would be pool funding for these organizations. And just as a message to all the people who are sort of in this with us, I will say it is our time. There has never been a better moment, and I do believe that the greatest gift of the digital age and AI will not come from tech itself, but from the prompt that it's asking of us as a humanity to step into a new way of being human on this planet. And Life Calling is not in the business of crisis. As far as I see it, I don't see a crisis. I see a mega opportunity. And the only crisis is missing that opportunity. So let's do it.
Thanks so much for your
John.
time. Human first strategy. I love the human first. I mean, we are AI first, cloud first. How about human first? Thanks for watching. I'm John Furrier, host of theCUBE. We are here in the Meatpacking District for CUBE coverage. Thanks for watching.